Hello, fellow co-creators. Welcome back to Liberatory Love. Right now, I'm working on a book and I'm extremely excited about that book. And I want to create this video because everything that I do is about co-creation. The book has to do with the subject of, although it might not be called this, it has to do with the subject of God. And the general matter is what I call activating the teacher. Activating the teacher is a process of coming in touch with the part of you who is here to teach you. The reason that I'm writing a book now at this moment is for the last 12 years, I've been on a specific journey that has led to my activation of my inner teacher. And what I have learned from my inner teacher is that growth, change, and evolution on a mental, emotional, conscious level is infinite. And I'm aware that over the next 12 years, very drastic shifts will continue to happen in my life because I am asking for them. I'm calling them in. So I would like to, for my own sake and for the sake of others who are on a journey that might be similar to mine, capture where I'm at now. And I'm creating this video to put out some of the stress and the joy that I have felt in the process, and invite you as a listener to get in touch with me and share with me any questions that come up from this, any stories that you would be interested in hearing about. I'm working on a balance between speaking my own story, because there's plenty of my own story that I'm not ready to talk about or wanting to talk about or don't feel is relevant, and the balance of actually sharing the concepts, the ideas that are coming alive for me. So if you listen to this video through, you can email me or DM me on Instagram, liberatory.love, and share with me a voice note or a written piece about what you would want to hear more about, what feels relevant on your journey, what feels interesting, exciting, or nerve-wracking, where you would like guidance. So with the subject matter of activating the teacher, this is a subject matter that's important given that I'm creating a coaching space dedicated to people's relationship to God and to sexuality. Or what I usually say is relationship to religion and to sexuality. And the reason that I'm working with those two energies is I love polarity. My life already called me to that polarity. I was raised religious. I was raised already very sexual from the time I was young, with this question mark about how to hold the two, in a repression of the sexual in order to fulfill the religious. And there's been a dance between that. In reality, from what I know now, these poles exist everywhere. So even though I would write a book about religion and sexuality, someone else might write a book about science and spirituality. Someone else might write a book about trauma and consciousness. There's lots of different dualities that can produce a rupture of awakening. This is the duality that I have been uniquely flapped within the space of. Within the heart of this, within any duality that you feel at the intersection of, it's my belief that there is a gift or a seed. I call my work seeds of elegance. A seed, in my opinion, is something that, when planted into our collective consciousness, will produce a new way of being or a new action. At its simplest, we can think of people like Christ or Buddha. These are well-known figures, but there's plenty of other guides that have been to humanity. And now we live at a time where many of us are becoming the guides. Take the Buddha's teachings and distill it into something. Usually the word you might get is detachment or enlightenment. Take Jesus's teachings, you distill it, and you might get forgiveness or redemption. Detachment and redemption are two poles themselves. If you're someone who studied the Abrahamic teachings or Christianity and Buddhism or more of the Eastern teachings, you learn to hold this duality. But either one of these teachers, even though they are a person, they are also an energetic force, and their energetic force produces a way of life. Formerly, in the past, that has been an entire religion, an entire structure in the way that the people act. But also, we know that beyond just the religion, you're capable as a human of having a relationship to Christ without being part of the religion of Christianity. You're capable of having a relationship to Buddha without having the religion of Buddhism. And you're also capable of tapping into Christ consciousness, which is to say the part of Christ that is mirrored in you, without just talking about a relationship to Christ. And you're capable of having Buddha consciousness in you without just thinking of it as a relationship to Buddha. It's my belief that each of us have something to bring, a seed to bring that can shift the way the collective is acting or behaving. It's also my belief that not everyone, that's where they're going to contribute or how. But if you have something and you feel called to teach or to bring it, that you will be supported in that. So my seed of elegance has to do with this intersection. This intersection is revealing itself to me all of the time. At the heart of the intersection is the new thing. This is, in my opinion, a big bang. There's two ways from my vantage point that I understand this. On the one hand, you could think of this as a marriage or a procreation. So two different things in your world, two strong poles, they're actually coming together to create something new. Another way of looking at it is a big bang or a rupture. You are more of the voided or universe. And these two things are stirring in your system until they clash. And this is just how it has been for me. I don't know that everyone has such strong poles or interests. I just know that I had these seemingly opposite poles. But it's also my belief, because we live in a society that has a lot of fragmentation, that for many of us, we have likely had something split that feels like a split, that our being or our life is here to help refuse. The process of saying yes to this thing. For some of us, it might be a gift. But in what I'm talking about, which is like the cultivation of a seed or a truth within you, it's my belief that it's not so much like a gift, like you're giving forward. It's more like your own life being is some type of canvas. Different circumstances or experiences are bringing you uh, shifts or changes in that space, or maybe the same, like knocking at a house until it bursts. And then that next stage is birthed out. So the process of actually coming into the creation involves a level of discipline and reverence for the things that might feel like shadows, or even things that you would like to be free of. Only through their acceptance can the gift of what they together are birthing, or that thing itself is birthing, happen. Okay, as I speak, I feel like I'm talking myself into a blur. So let me come a little bit more centered. Working on the relationship of sexuality and religion has nothing to do with either of those things. Those are just the poles in my life that are teaching me. Again, someone else might have race or class and divinity or authority or power. Someone else might have sadness or depression and joy and aliveness. I'm actually just continuing to speak more of my own. And it might just be my love of polarity that is producing all of this. So, yes, I have a love of polarity, the same way you might love the sun and the moon, or the ocean and the jungle, or the desert. And I don't know. What I've learned about traversing these intersections is that this mind cannot grasp the connection. So we hit a wall in ourselves where we believe that it's better to be quiet or to step back or to shrink or to be smaller, to move away, to do less, or to be extreme in one or extreme in the other. This is not working for me. It's not working to shrink because it physically hurts and I get sick. It's not working to choose one because I feel dead. It's not working to choose the other because it feels empty. And I can't be sick, and I can't be dead, and I can't be empty, or at least I don't want to be, which means that I have to sit and hold the polarity. Within the polarity is the joy, the openness, the next level. And specifically within the space of religion, exploring religion led me to a lot of darkness, a lot of blocks, a lot of rejection of who I am. But it kept with me a faith that truth exists. With sexuality, it led me to a lot of joy, pleasure, and aliveness. But socially, it led me to a lot of rejection, judgments, and shame, confusion, frustration, and anger. But it taught me that its essence is inherent. So with both of them, I've had to learn a lesson about the limitations of how the society or culture is perceiving the thing, doing the thing, living the thing, and reclaim and own what I perceive the thing is, as well as raise certain questions about why this thing would be so controversial. And the why behind both of them ultimately point back to human power. Why would we demonize religion if it's making us intellectually unintelligent and superstitious? Then let's be critical of religion. But to demonize it, to worship it first, is to become separate from the reality that is us. But to demonize it also is to become separate from the reality that is us. To worship sexuality is to become separate from the identity that is us. But to demonize it is to become separate from the identity that is us. So, right relation and regard for the distinctness of our journeys and inquiry into the connectedness of our journeys is what I've learned through these paths. why I'm choosing to write about them and speak about them as a non-expert in either is part of dismantling the power structures that keep us in this obsession, repression energy, is honoring the authority that you are, honoring and challenging, both honoring and challenging the ways that we have chosen to teach and spread information. Who gets to be the higher, who gets to be the expert? And there's a there's a challenge, which is that there's kind of a like, I wish, for me, it comes like this. I wish we could not talk about it. I wish we could not talk about God. I wish we could not talk about sex because it's such a good thing. It's such an easy thing. If it's easy, if it's good, if it's simple, if pleasure is here, if God is here, why make a big deal about it? Why talk about it? And yet, not talking about it is what keeps the systems perpetuated. There's a limitation to what can be talked about. These things have to be experienced. You can't just write a book about God. You can't just write a book about sex. Someone has to experience sex. Someone has to experience God. And those experiences become very similar once you go into the depths of them. One involves coming into the body to find God, one involves releasing the body. One involves coming more close, or one involves surrendering into another. One involves surrendering into something bigger. Both require connection to yourself and your current reality rather than ignoring it. And we often try to ignore it. So no matter how much there's the desire to shut down the conversation, and you can see this through all the time. No, I don't want to have a conversation with you about that. Or why do you need to read a book about that? Meanwhile, if we don't have a conversation about it, the old stories are just playing out. So the conversation is not how do we avoid the conversation, it's how do we have the conversation in a way that produces greater peace. And the first part of that is that it's not going to be peaceful. Is there a way to be peaceful and discover the forces of the universe? Is there a way to be peaceful and discover the power of your body? I don't think so. Because if there was, we wouldn't have such repression around it. And again, this repression is not just from people who are conducting it, it's from the people outside of it too. There's religious authorities, of course, who want to keep religion as is, to keep our power dead. There's capitalists who use sex to sell everything. It's in their power to keep us dead and uninspired. But the hatred of religion perpetuates the religious game working as it is. And the hatred of the sex industry as it is keeps the perpetuation of that industry as it is, because then everybody is shamed for being addicted to porn or being incapable of having a monogamous relationship if they want that, or whatever it is. So the only way, not the only way, but a way to begin to untangle the non-truths from the truths is to talk about a thing that cannot be named. You can't have these conversations without explorations of history and science, but you can't have them without explorations of mystery. Maybe the sex side a little bit more. You could say, oh, we just measure everything. And this is how pleasure works, and these chemicals go to the brain. But does that explain full body orgasm? Does that explain out of body experiences? No, it doesn't. Another thing here is that these affect our social relationships. This affect our capacity to love and be loved. Like any other human, I would rather have easier, simpler. Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't even want that, but I would like to I miss having a normal life. I miss being able to sit at a dinner table and not be questioning everything. I wish I could just go on dates and not need to dismantle the entire thought patterns of the person that I'm with. At this moment, my soul's asking me to have this conversation and to have it publicly. And what's really important is that there's so much public shame for talking about either of these subjects. And a lot of fear can be produced about having a conversation about them together. But if the conversation is not had, and if the conversation is not had together, things stay the same. Somebody has to be willing to have the conversation publicly. Plenty of people are having it publicly, but I'm like louder. I'm like louder and more. I want it in the face of things in a way that it disrupts. And with that, I position myself to be at a place where I can be insulted, ridiculed, blah, 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 blah. Again, blah, 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 because who cares? What religious teachers teach us is that they fucking got martyred here and their message survived. And what the divine feminine teaches us is that you can cage the female body for 2,000 years. You can't kill the feminine spirit, and it's rising and it's here. What else? This is fun. This is meant to be fun. That's something that's important in all of this. The war cannot be avoided. And I think that's important for me to acknowledge as somebody who's striving toward peace. The war doesn't mean that it needs to manifest in physical war, but it's also a little too easy to pretend that everything will just be okay right now. Plenty of people do not want our unique and innate power being known, being seen. And while I could take a political route as well, and may in time take a more politicized route at activating human power, this is the fastest route, in my opinion, to having a person experience God for themselves in their own body. And until we're experiencing God ourselves in our own body, in our own experience, the solutions that we're putting together are going to be, in my opinion, quite limited. I want to give something for people to chew on. And I also want to create something that could be talked about. So let's say you're going on a date and these are subjects you wouldn't want to talk about, or you're reconnecting with, I don't ever think these would be easy conversations with your family, but let's say people who you want to build community with. These are very, very, very heart-centered conversations. So I'm asking you to support me to make it easier for you to have them. It's not just about me, it's about us talking together. But I was given the desire to go into some type of spiritual space that involves the whole being, whole body, and have the conversation as publicly as possible. And my own learning in this is patience in some ways, because consciousness changes through people, not through any one leader. But consciousness, also consciousness can be shared in a format that activates. So you could imagine that this book, let's say, is about 100 or 150 pages. And if a certain number of people got it in their hands, there's a certain amount of people that would not be able to just to stay with their spouses, to stay with their families, to do things as they were. People would need to speak up. People would need to try things with themselves. People wouldn't be able to be controlled. And I'm sharing that now. That's what, I mean, most of us who want to spur or awaken consciousness have that desire, that yearning. I'm asking for support to hear what wants to be shifted in the culture around you, in the sphere around you. Because you ultimately have to live your own liberatory love. You're going to have your own relationship to it. There's nothing that I can write that can make the process necessarily without pain. It just is with a lubricant. It's with some support in the penetration, which is good to know. This is going to feel good. I have to remind myself that, because right now I'm just like, it's painful. It's painful. But that kind of reminds me of my initial feelings about, for many people, potential initial feelings about penetration is like, I'm not expecting, I'm not ready for something to come into me. But at the same time, once something is inside of you, your entire experience actually changes. It's no longer about the fear of something entering you. It's about a whole nother experience, a whole nother wave, a whole nother way of being. And I guess that's what I'm saying. Can you let me fuck your mind? That feels good to admit. There's a force that wants to penetrate us in order for us to receive at a different level. And then on the flip side, from the divine feminine, there's a force that wants to receive from us, that's asking us to penetrate it. And that to me is what it means to start to be in true relationship to the divine. It's not a worshipful separation, but it is some kind of interplay, an exchange, an opening. And activating the teacher is about receiving enough of your own guidance that you would be able to open to receiving or open to giving with the or both with the universe. I'm advocating essentially for a bisexual relationship with the divine. And letting us know that it's fun and it's safe and that God can handle us making jokes about this. And it's provocative and delightful and soft and gentle and worth it, and an invitation. I think that summarizes it for now. If any of this resonates, What? What do you have questions about? Watch. I, don't be shocked. I say this sometimes, but don't be shocked by my like pauses and everything. This is me overcoming my own conditioning. Um, where do you feel it? Where does it actually resonate, like on a heart level? What stories would you want to know that led me to this? What do you want to see changed in your life? What do you want to see change in the way that you relate to your body, to intimacy, to sexuality, to God, to source? What questions do you have about their intersection? What feels new here? What feels like something you already know? Much love.